The man casually tosses a small ball but can precisely predict the trajectory of the object's movement. It's hard to imagine that this seemingly wise and refined gentleman, with his scholarly demeanor, is secretly the top criminal. The Oriole, after eating just 1 grain of millet, was brutally smashed to death by the man with a tennis ball. No one in the entire prison dares to provoke this insane existence, because everyone knows that anything in his hands could become a deadly weapon. Such an extraordinary ability soon caught the attention of senior military officials. They offered a 10-year sentence reduction in exchange for the man's participation in an almost impossible mission. Although he was only 3 days away from being released, the man allowed a secret organization to inject him with a special syringe. They implanted an explosive device in his neck to prevent him from escaping. Sure enough, upon arrival, the squad members looked exactly as he had expected, each one bizarre in their own way. Seeing a weasel-like creature among the squad made the man more certain that the success of this mission depended entirely on him. However, just before the mission, the last squad member arrived late, looking like they had no combat skills whatsoever. Along the way, they laughed and chatted, completely unaware of the gravity of the situation. Only the man remained silent, quietly planning the proper course of action in his mind. Fortunately, under the cover of darkness, they quickly reached the mission site. The man no longer had to endure the idiocy of this group and was the first to jump off the plane, diving into the sea in a perfect posture. Now, all they had to do was silently swim to the opposite shore, and they could proceed with the next phase of their operation. Unexpectedly, the weasel, who had once killed 27 Special Forces soldiers with his bare hands, couldn't swim, and soon swallowed water and sank. Sticking to the principle of never leave anyone behind, the man hurriedly swam to save him and dragged him to shore. But to his surprise, the weasel seemed to sense danger and played dead, successfully tricking everyone. As the rest of the team reached the shore and assumed battle positions, the man suddenly felt a bad premonition. The jungle ahead was eerily dark, unreasonably so. Before he could warn the others, a traitor within the team revealed themselves and put everyone in danger. Realizing the secret mission had been compromised, Colonel Rick immediately requested a retreat. However, Amanda insisted the mission was too important to abandon and was confident the team could break through the enemy's firepower. Sure enough, as soon as she finished speaking, Harley fired a rocket launcher and struck back. Boomerang followed closely behind, cutting down enemy soldiers with his impressive combat skills, and the team quickly found the crucial breakthrough. Seeing this, the command center immediately ordered them to deploy their strongest fighter, the arm-cutting hero, to attack from the 2 o'clock position. The alien warrior, unwilling to let Harley belittle her team, volunteered to take down the armed helicopter, but unexpectedly, due to a fear of heights, she was forced to shake the helicopter uncontrollably. While taking out the enemies, she also helped them eliminate Boomerang, the team leader. The man witnessed his teammates dying one by one in a hail of bullets and screamed in agony. Overcome with rage and despair, he recklessly fled into the sea. Amanda didn't expect him to break down at such a critical moment. After repeated warnings had no effect, she detonated the bomb, ending this tyrant's reign. Thinking the mission would end in failure, Amanda surprised everyone by sending 2 separate teams to land. Whichever team played the role of cannon fodder would still achieve the mission's goal. With the gambling game between the 2 teams concluded, Amanda's real plan was finally revealed. It turned out that the so-called scholar in the prison was not a man of mystery, but a brutal killer who had spent years silently cleaning toilets in the restroom. Trained by his father from a young age to become a killing machine, he was proficient in various fighting techniques and all known weapons. He was imprisoned because he had once used a single bullet to send Superman into the ICU. According to intelligence, the man was meticulous and well-organized, making him a perfect candidate for the team leader position. However, the Bloodsport had long since abandoned the concept of life and death and refused to join Task Force X. No matter how much they persuaded him, with no other option, Amanda had to use Bloodsport's daughter as leverage to force him to comply. Agreeing to undertake a suicide mission, Bloodsport met the second team member, the Peacekeeper. He possessed abilities and skills comparable to those of the team leader and had always wanted a death match with Bloodsport. The next team member exceeded their expectations. It was a mutated Shark King. Though illiterate and often holding books upside down, the Shark King loved to learn and had a strong thirst for knowledge. He was said to be a descendant of an ancient Shark King, possessing unmatched strength and indestructible skin. In the team, he was definitely the powerhouse, the ultimate fighter. His only weakness was his tendency to secretly eat people when he got hungry. Additionally, there was a seemingly ordinary human girl in the team, Her superpower was controlling an army of rats and turning them into deadly weapons. After meeting the final member, Polka Dot, Amanda began explaining the mission. Their destination was an island off the coast of South America. For the last 100 years, this country had been ruled by the Herrera family, but recently, General Luna and his deputies staged a coup, ruthlessly killing the old royal family. While the US government didn't care about the local people's lives, Amanda feared that Luna's new regime, which was extremely anti-American, would discover a scientific research base on the island. This base housed an extraterrestrial project known as Starfish, which was of critical importance. If the Luna government acquired it, not only would it threaten US dominance, but it could also cause worldwide catastrophic consequences. To prevent this, Amanda instructed the team to land successfully and quickly find the project's leader, the Thinker. They had to use any means necessary to force the Thinker to destroy the Starfish project. Intelligence showed that the Thinker frequented a local brothel, making it an ideal location for their mission. With another team helping to draw enemy fire, they quickly landed on the south coast. From there, they only needed to cross the jungle to infiltrate the city and reach the club. However, things didn't go as planned. While setting up camp, Polka Dot, having lost his power suppressor, began to uncontrollably release his energy. To avoid harming his teammates, he ran into the bushes and released all his energy, awkwardly emerging afterward. Before Bloodsport could recover from the shock, the rats under his control suddenly let out a sharp scream, and the team saw the Shark King opening his massive jaws to devour a teammate. In the nick of time, Bloodsport activated his weapon and shot, narrowly saving the teammate. The Shark King, though tough and bulletproof, was knocked off balance by the force and fell to the ground. Fortunately, the Rat Girl realized the Shark King wasn't all there mentally and didn't hold it against him. Just then, the command center received a signal from Colonel Rick. It turned out that he had narrowly escaped the northern battlefield but had fallen into the hands of local armed forces. Since the two teams were not far apart, Amanda decided to change plans and send them to rescue Colonel Rick first. Once Rick's location was confirmed, they immediately set out for the rescue. Little did they know, a disastrous mix-up was about to unfold. The man, just taking a quick piss, was ruthlessly swallowed by the hungry Shark King. Against these super killing machines born for combat, the rebels had no chance to fight back. In a moment, they were all slaughtered. The screams that echoed in their ears felt like a feast to them, making it impossible to suppress their excitement. Silently sneaking up behind the guards, they began their brutal competition to kill. As a true weapons master, the bloodthirsty sport had turned him into a killing machine. Trained from childhood by his father, his strikes were quick, precise, and merciless, quickly gaining an overwhelming numerical advantage. Meanwhile, the Peacekeeper, having suffered the same fate, gently climbed to the rooftop, retrieving poison darts from his pocket to continuously harvest the lives of the rebels, even the woman doing laundry. The reason for their cruelty was Amanda, the commander, who had stated that the local militants were inhumane, and they had to kill every living thing they saw to successfully rescue Colonel Rick. But with two top assassins facing off, it was inevitable that a winner would emerge. This would prove who was the most impressive member of Team X. Just as they located Colonel Rick, a nearby scout, disguised, suddenly unveiled a machine gun. Luckily, at the critical moment, the Polka Dot Man released his energy and blew up the watchtower, allowing the team to slip into the enemy camp unscathed. However, to their shock, they found Colonel Rick laughing and chatting with the enemy leader. The tense atmosphere turned awkward instantly. They soon realized that the woman sitting across from him was none other than Rick's savior. For years, she had led the rebels in attempts to overthrow the island's dictatorship and establish a harmonious and free society. Seeing these American soldiers storm into the tribe and destroy the very army she had painstakingly built, the rebel leader was filled with anger and frustration. Colonel Rick quickly explained that, according to their intel, General Luna would soon uncover a hidden secret in Jotunheim after seizing power. If the enemy gained control of that terrifying alien technology, not only would the people of Cortoma never have a future, but the whole world would fall under the shadow of the Starfish project. To avenge her father's death at General Luna's hands, the female commander agreed to make a deal with these American devils, arranging for an informant to help them infiltrate the city and take down the head of the Starfish project. However, the untrained team members soon felt the strain of the jungle's complexities, especially when the Polka Dot Man's face began to swell again with colorful orbs, causing concern among the team. Reluctantly, the Polka Dot Man explained that his mother had been a scientist at the Star Labs, and to turn children into superheroes, they were infected with a cross-dimensional virus. Thus, he had to regularly expel the deadly projectiles to avoid death. His inhumane experiences twisted his mind, leading him to see everyone around him as his mother. After a long journey, the team finally met up with the commander's current contact and arrived at the Thinker's usual hangout. Before Bloodsport could draw his weapon to signal the man to stay quiet, the guard team suddenly broke in, preparing to search for the identities of all outsiders. With no choice, the man instructed his teammate to evacuate the Thinker through the back door while he exposed himself to buy time. With the help of the other two teammates, Ratcatcher controlled the rats to kill the backdoor guard, allowing them to successfully escort the Thinker to the van. After completing the mission, the three voluntarily surrendered, planning to figure out how to break free. Unexpectedly, they learned from the guards that Harley was still alive. It turned out that the beach landing mission of Squad 1, where Harley was, had been a failure. She had taken the weapon from the spearhead team leader and intended to die with the enemy, but General Luna suddenly ordered to throw down a princess dress, dressing her up and respectfully sending her to the presidential palace. General Luna, having heard of Harley's deeds, believed her to be a staunch anti-American fighter worthy of national admiration. Under Luna's hospitality, Harley spent a wonderful and romantic day. The man, captivated by her charm, unexpectedly proposed, hoping she would continue to uphold the anti-American hero image and become the First Lady. After a night of madness, General Luna looked towards Jotunheim and unconsciously confessed his intentions. He planned to use the monster hidden there to conquer the world, and anyone daring to challenge him would pay the price. Hearing that Luna was willing to harm children to achieve his goals, Harley didn't hesitate to kill him. Everyone thought that with Luna's death, life for the Cortoma people would improve. However, the new president, who took over Luna's position, was even more insane and paranoid, throwing Harley into a death cell and torturing her mercilessly. He even sent out the guard team to aggressively arrest foreign tourists, fearing they would spread words that undermined his rule. The three, upon learning the truth, immediately took action, killing the guards and meeting up with their teammates to rescue Harley. Despite being tortured with high-voltage currents, Harley remained unfazed, smiling brightly as if it was nothing. The vicious criminals seemed insulted and increased the current, hoping to break her spirit, but they underestimated the infamous Harley, a madwoman who enjoyed pain. The leader, seeing her fall unconscious, lost interest and ordered his men to wait for her to wake up and try a different method of torture. But just as the man opened his phone to search for new tortures, Harley, who had been unconscious, suddenly opened her eyes silently and aimed at the man's neck. Slowly, she raised her long leg, and the air was thick with an oppressive feeling. The more he struggled, the stronger her leg's pressure became. With a powerful thrust, the man was lifted off the ground, losing his ability to resist. A sharp crack echoed as his neck snapped, and he fell at Harley's feet. Harley elegantly extended her foot, using her toes to grab the key and unlock her handcuffs, then landed gracefully, choosing a pair of shoes from the corner. She calmly picked up the gun, fixing her hair as if nothing had happened. She then pushed open the door, and in the stunned expressions of the guards, she began her massacre. Facing this furious female killer, the guards were no match for her. In mere moments, they were defeated, scattered, and completely overwhelmed. Even though reinforcements were called in, it was to no avail. Still, Harley wasn't satisfied. Quickly discarding her gun, she broke through the door and used her excellent combat skills to eliminate the soldiers lying in wait in the hallway. Tearing off the hem of her skirt, she used it as a weapon, throwing one soldier out of the way. After eliminating all the soldiers in the room with lightning speed, Harley picked up a fallen gun and walked out confidently. She then turned her fury onto the soldiers coming to reinforce, releasing her madness. The bullets tore through their bodies, creating vibrant flowers of death, filling the air with a faint, sweet scent. Harley discarded her rifle, grabbed a powerful artifact from the corner, and continued her deadly rampage. With the last two soldiers pierced through their chests, Harley finally walked out of the presidential palace unscathed. Waving to a taxi in the distance, the driver, having never received such a customer, asked in confusion about her destination. But after Harley got into the car, she noticed two suspicious figures and realized the special ops team had secretly infiltrated the city to rescue her. Once the team was assembled, they decided to carry out their ultimate mission, to destroy the Starfish project completely. They took the doctor hostage and stormed Jotunheim, using his eye recognition to open the laboratory doors. Then, they pulled out their weapons and threatened the Thinker to input emergency commands, locking down the lab and keeping the approaching enemy forces outside. Taking advantage of this moment, they spread out to plant explosives in the building. Meanwhile, the Colonel and Ratcatcher took the doctor into the underground lab to uncover the truth behind the Starfish project. To their horror, they found numerous humans locked up, with little starfish attached to their faces, seemingly controlled by these alien creatures. These humans accused the Thinker of secretly imprisoning them for 30 years. Shocked and at a loss for words, they instinctively stepped back, inadvertently awakening a giant alien creature. The national hero explained that the creature was known as the Conqueror Staro, discovered by the U.S. Space Agency 30 years ago in space. They had brought the young star back to Earth, and after preliminary research, found that it could control human minds. Though the Cold War had ended, the U.S. government decided to secretly research it as a biological weapon to maintain global supremacy. To avoid controversial experiments on their home turf, the military chose to reach an agreement with the local government where the doctor worked. They established Jotunheim on this island near the coast of South America. Not long ago, local anti-American armed forces successfully took power. The U.S. government feared their crimes would be exposed and condemned by the world. So, they decided to urgently send a special task force to destroy all experimental records. Colonel Rick was enraged when he learned the truth. He walked into the control room, removed the hard drive containing the experimental data, and prepared to expose the U.S. government's lies to the world. Unexpectedly, at that moment, a peacekeeper suddenly aimed his gun at him. It turned out that, to ensure the secrecy wasn't leaked, Amanda had secretly ordered the peacekeeper to infiltrate the team. If Colonel Rick insisted on his course, he would show no mercy and pull the trigger. At the critical moment, a timed bomb placed inside the building was accidentally forgotten by the operator. The entire laboratory began to shake violently and collapse. Before anyone could react, they were buried under falling debris. When the Thinker woke from his unconscious state, he found that the laboratory holding the monster had been breached. Next, several tentacles rushed in, wrapping around the man and dragging him into the abyss. The monster, imprisoned by the tiny humans for over 30 years, loathed the bald man who tortured him every day. Meanwhile, a scream of pain echoed, awakening the peacekeeper. He saw in the reflection of his helmet that Colonel Rick was slowly rising, seemingly impaled by a falling steel beam. He immediately realized what was happening and began to fight for the hard drive. Injured and weakened, the colonel was no match for the peacekeeper. Within a few rounds, he was knocked to the ground. Both men acted ruthlessly, driven by their own beliefs. The colonel's last words, filled with regret, were cut short as he died on the spot. Seeing the peacekeeper's bloodlust, the ratcatcher quickly grabbed the hard drive and fled. Before she could summon her rat army, the peacekeeper caught up and knocked her to the ground. To ensure the truth of the Starfish plan remained buried, the peacekeeper had to aim at the ratcatcher, ready to kill. However, in the heat of the moment, the bloody operation was interrupted by the collapsing floor from above. Seeing the ratcatcher's pleading look, the man suddenly understood. A cosmic-level showdown began. Though the small-caliber bullets caused limited damage, they pierced through the peacekeeper's neck with precision. After learning the truth from the ratcatcher, a somber expression appeared on the bloody operation's face. Just then, the ground began to shake violently. Clearly, the monster was trying to escape the laboratory. Reluctantly, everyone hurried to leave Jotunheim, but after being imprisoned by humans for decades, the Conqueror's anger reached its peak. The first thing he did was begin a brutal revenge against all of humanity. Seeing this, the general disregarded any attempt to deal with the task force and immediately ordered soldiers to open fire on the monster. However, normal attacks couldn't penetrate the Conqueror's skin, only enraging him further. The monster raised its tentacles, and countless tiny starfish shot out. They floated in the air for a moment before suddenly spreading their tentacles and latching onto the soldiers' faces. The ratcatcher quickly put on a mask and reminded everyone to protect their faces, or they would lose their consciousness and become puppets of the Conqueror. However, the other soldiers, lacking the task force's skills, were wiped out in moments, losing their fighting ability. Even the general was forced to surrender and became a puppet. As the task force members stared in shock, the fallen soldiers slowly stood up, now under the Conqueror's control, and declared dominion over everyone. Led by the giant starfish, the alien creatures marched towards the city center. Despite the remaining soldiers' desperate resistance, there was no hope of winning against such a massive creature. They were crushed into a mass of flesh in an instant. Seeing the panic and death of the city's citizens, Amanda declared that the task force had completed its mission to destroy Jotunheim. As for the fate of the locals, it was of no concern to the U.S. government. Hearing screams echoing, Bloodsport couldn't allow the Conqueror to release the starfish and take away the citizens' free will. Even if Amanda had to blow his head off, he would stop that giant monster. Seeing the task force members ignore her orders and head towards the city, Amanda became furious. she opened her briefcase and prepared to detonate their heads. At the critical moment, the cleaning staff, unable to bear the weight of their conscience, swung a mop and knocked Amanda to the ground. Considering the many civilians waiting for the task force's rescue, everyone immediately connected to satellites to devise a plan of action. Seeing this, Bloody Operation quickly pulled out accessories to enhance his firepower and aimed at the monster, firing madly. However, even this couldn't break its defenses. Helpless, he ordered Harley to take the high ground and instructed King Shark to charge. Upon hearing that the enemy was his mother, who had driven him to madness, he was consumed by rage and aimed at the Conqueror, releasing wave after wave of destructive blasts. The powerful radiation quickly corroded the monster's ankle. The Conqueror let out a painful roar. Sadly, due to the massive size difference, King Shark was thrown out by the monster's tentacle after only a few bites. Despite Bloodsport's incredible strength, he was ultimately surrounded by the puppet army and lost his ability to resist. Just as the Conqueror announced his plan to occupy the city, the Ratcatcher stepped forward, declaring that the true master of the city had always been the rat army hiding in the shadows. Ignored by everyone, as soon as she finished speaking, a swarm of rats poured out, rushing towards the puppet army like a tidal wave. Though tiny and seemingly insignificant, once united, they quickly occupied every corner of the city. Even the Conqueror, in all his might, was shocked by this sight. Desperately shaking his massive body, he tried to shake off the rats, but the rats, called together, would not let him off easily. They swarmed up his massive body and began gnawing furiously. Seeing this, Harley leaped into the air, her spear plunging into the monster's eye like a sword. The rat army followed suit, pouring into the hole and ruthlessly attacking the monster's brain. Soon, the Conqueror's eyes were filled with blood, and he staggered and collapsed. Finally motionless, with Harley safely escaping, humanity regained its free will. The people of Cortamoa would soon overthrow the dictatorship and return to the embrace of civilization. In the end, Bloody Operation threatened Amanda with the contents of the hard drive, making a deal to successfully free the task force from her control. I'm a movie enthusiast. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.